Present.
Ken Bargander.
Here.
Russ Stauber.
Here.
Paul Kapla.
Here.
Andrew Rigel.
Here.
And John Tracy.
Here.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Item number 2, approval of the minutes, March 6, 2024. A motion by Tom? Second by Paul? Okay. Item number 3, identifying any potential conflicts. Do we have any potential conflicts? Oh, sorry.
Do we need a vote?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the reminder. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
I'm trying to move this along, Paul, and Andrew and everyone. All right, item number 3, identify potential conflicts of interest. Are there any potential conflicts of interest? Okay. Item number 4, any citizen comments? We have some citizen comments today. Welcome. Please state your name and who you are and why you're here.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My name is Rachel Mysick. I live at 306 East 5th Street, Marshfield, Wisconsin. I'm here to speak on item 11. Should I say what item 11 is?
You can. Yeah, for the people that maybe don't have the agenda printed.
Okay, so item 11 is to review and discuss a proposed policy for allowing public comment at board meetings. So the primary function of boards and committees is to provide oversight and review of specific areas of local governments. There is a most important role is to engage the members of the community, ensure government transparency, and to be effective guidance to the Common Council. Boards and committees are the link between elected officials and the people who voted them in. And I'm reading this book. It's called Moving Mountains and Molehills, Local Politics 101. It's written by Al Arnold, who is the mayor of Rice Lake from 1998 to 2000. And he identifies 4 of his opinion of citizens that come and comment. So there's 4 groups in his opinion. And his first group is, and I'm not going to, go into what they are. I'm just going to say what they are. The rabble-rousers, concerned citizens, visitors, and then he calls them NIMBAs, not in my backyard. And the reason why he identifies these people is because they're the people that you want engaged and what kind of people they are that will engage. And the importance of public comment at boards is another way to use your voice besides the vote. And citizens' ideas come to boards and committees to either thrive or die. And I believe that removing this option discourages community engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Couldn't agree more. Also, I just want to make a correction. I believe that was item 13, not 11, right? Okay. Any other citizens' comments? Okay. Chairperson comments? Guess that'd be me, right? Just kidding. I couldn't agree more with what Rachel said. Our meetings are run by Robert's Rules of Order and Parliamentary Procedure. I think it's unnecessary for us to do anything to squash citizens' comments. These seats aren't ours, they're the taxpayers' seats. And we need to respect that, whether it's on this committee or any other committee. Lois, did you have a comment?
Why? And every board, commission, and committee has. I'm not sure what's going on. I apologize, but I'm not sure what your drive is, because we are not squashing.
Hey, Lois, it was brought up at the last meeting by Ken Bargander to limit the speaking.
We're limited. We've got 7 or 8 people.
We've never had 7 or 8 people. We've never had 7 or 8 people. Yep, and I'm addressing this committee. So if there's other committees that need to get addressed, then I think that's appropriate there. But this committee, I feel that needs to be engagement from the citizens, especially when we're dealing with economic development and taxpayer money to try to grow the city of Marshfield. And we can have I think there's an item on the agenda, Lois, to address that, and this is chairperson's comments. So I am speaking right now, and if you wanted to have a side conversation with Ken about this later, you're more than welcome to. I will move on. Board members' items number 6. Any board members' comments? Item number 7, update 205 fund balance sheet. Steve?
Thank you. This is the balance sheet report for February. So of course, we're kind of a month behind. It shows really no activity. You will see activity when we see the March one. We did complete the sale of lot 18 in Daniel's edition. I think it's $47,500. That will show up in the next report. But again, for February, there was nothing of any note. Any questions?
Any questions? Okay.
Thank you,
Steve.
Thank you.
Item number 8, presentation, proposed community co-working entrepreneurial space. Marcia Bushwin. Morning, Marcia. Thank you.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. I know some of you in the room, but for those that I don't know, just want to give you a very brief introduction. I am Marcia Bushman. I have born and raised here, always been in Marshfield. I've spent about 25 years in the healthcare industry, but it's been in the business development, sales, marketing side of the house. I was with Marshfield Clinic for about 15 years, was with Prevention, Mayo, and most recently have worked with some startup companies in the healthcare space. That said, one of my passions has always been bringing some type of an entrepreneurial opportunity to this community, and I've always worked really hard to do that. I've served on a lot of the different boards in this community over the last 25 years and have really kept a pulse on where I think we have opportunity to improve and grow. Most recently, I joined a couple of boards. I'm on the Exclamation board, if you're familiar with that new marketing agency out of Simplicity, and then I also serve on the Main Street Marshfield board, and I now chair the Economic Vitality Committee for Main Street Marshfield. So hopefully that ties together kind of why I'm here and why I'm interested to talk to you all. So I want to introduce a concept called the Coven, which is a community co-working space. For those of you that are not familiar with those, it is basically a space for people to gather, work. They can come in and work by the day. They can come in and have dedicated desk space, office space, but it's really a place, a boardroom space. It's a place for people to come and really work together and share their entrepreneurial ideas. And this is not a new concept. A lot of communities have done this. And so the Coven in particular is one that I've done a ton of research on. And the reason that I've narrowed it down to this particular franchise is because, as you can see, they have some pretty interesting locations already. The one that I'm going to talk a little bit more about is Eau Claire. So if you are familiar with a company called Jamf, they're what the industry calls kind of a unicorn company because they grew very rapidly. They were very successful. They took some of that money and they reinvested it into the Eau Claire community with a space called CoLab. CoLab actually works with the university systems and others. It's about helping entrepreneurs grow. It's about company startup. It's about really how do we help people proceed through their journeys through economic development. And so they recently actually rebranded as part of the Coven because they really liked what they saw in that opportunity and how it could really help foster what they were doing. So today, what I'd like to do is talk just briefly about what I'm proposing, the value add that it brings to this community. I want to talk a little bit about community alignment. We'll talk about a little the differentiators between this versus maybe other things you've heard about, and then I'll just talk a little bit about the financial mechanism around this. So as far as the project itself, how this kind of came to be, I've already talked about, but as far as how it's going to benefit the downtown, I actually have been in the process of purchasing an underutilized building in the bid district. So a lot of you are familiar with what's known as the Moneywise Mortgage Building. If you're familiar with what's happening with that building right now, it is almost completely empty, which is really unfortunate. I just had an inspection report, and what I was told was that that is probably one of the most solid foundational buildings in the bid district, and it's sitting empty. So I've been working with Harlan Ekla as well as one of the realtors, and we actually have an offer to purchase that has been accepted, and we're moving forward. I personally am moving forward with the purchase of that building. We're looking to do some immediate renovations. The upstairs will be individual office space. So right now it's really challenging for an individual to come into the community and say, I don't have $1,000 to rent a space, but I need a space to work. I just had a woman reach out to me and say, I own a small marketing business out of my home, but I need a boardroom that I can meet with my clients. I don't really have anywhere to go. So great opportunity, perfect example of somebody who just needs a $400 space to work from and then needs additional resources around her that don't cost her additional dollars. Also in conversations with a couple of different businesses about moving into the lower level of the space. So the idea is that the co-working coven space would occupy about 3/4 of the first floor, and then we would have a couple of additional businesses that would also move into that space. Kaylee, is it okay if I make comment from yesterday's board meeting? So I think you all are also aware that I call it the old penny court for those of you that have been here forever. But that building actually has gone up for sale as well, which means Main Street Marshfield is being relocated. So basically we offered to match what they were currently paying so that they didn't have to adjust their budget and move over into the MoneyWise building. So they will also be making that transition over, and we're going to get them some additional marketing support. And hopefully we'll get some staffing support for them as well, because the coven will have to be staffed, which means we can have them do activities for Main Street at no cost to them. April 15th, or sometime the week of April 15th, we hope to have the coven individuals on site talking about the lower level renovation, then later into April. And then we'll do a physical launch, hopefully sometime this fall or winter. And we have had Pat Kilty through the building a couple of times. I'm meeting with him again today. So we really have done a lot of work to make sure that we are following the process and procedure. So, as far as this committee is concerned, really, the reason that I came here is because it was suggested to me that you all have a lot of influence over how we get things done, and that you really have you're really committed to making things happen in this community. So wanted to share with you what this is all about, the financial support. One of the things that I was told as well is that there could potentially be an opportunity to do some feasibility studies. I'm going to kind of go out on a limb here, but my understanding is that the city has some software that can actually do some of that feasibility testing within the community, some surveying opportunities. My question to the city was, have you ever made the community aware of that, and can businesses utilize that resource to do feasibility studies when they're building their business plans? And I was told, no, we've never talked about that. We've never considered that. So I don't know if that's an opportunity, but as somebody who's trying to start a business from scratch in this community, that seems like a pretty exciting opportunity to help people build their business plans. And then the other thing is you're extremely connected in this community. And so even though I've been here a long time, I don't necessarily know all of the individuals. I don't know all of the resources, and I definitely don't know all the processes in place to make these things happen. So I'm hoping that you all are the team to make that happen. So just very quickly, from a feasibility standpoint, there was actually a study that was done by the Main Street organization for the state of Wisconsin. There's a full report on it. I won't go into detail on this. It is in your slides, but they did a lot of work looking at what does the future hold? What is the sustainability of these types of spaces? Does it make sense to invest in them? And so really looking at what are people looking for from an entrepreneurial perspective. What really makes this opportunity different is that we're really looking to cater to entrepreneurs, freelancers, small to medium-sized local businesses, not looking to take away from other spaces that have space to rent, but really looking at that target market of individuals that are starting small. What I would love to see, and when you look at different co-working spaces and you look at different incubators, the whole point is get them in, get them started, push them out once they're big enough to go. And that's really what would be amazing to see here. I think community alignment is really critically important. So one of the things that I did is I sat down and looked through the city's strategic plan. And I found, as you can see here, about 5 different reasons why this really aligns with the community strategic plan. This is an opportunity to bring a new business into the community that is not just completely unknown. They have a basis. We have connections to the Eau Claire community through this opportunity. So there's opportunity here to bring additional resources in. Looking at addressing the gaps in quality of place and consumer experience, looking to continue to enhance the downtown and make it more attractive for businesses, consumers, and residents, looking at regional opportunities to develop market spaces, and then looking for regional partnerships. And so from a regional partnership perspective, I have been in contact with the different groups in Stevens Point, Wausau, SBA, Main Street. So, I mean, really have had a lot of conversations around this topic. There was one other bullet that I took off, and that was around housing. Would really, initially really wanted to put some residential housing up above in that building. Because it's not used for that purpose right now, it would be incredibly expensive. There are some things that the city would require me to do, which really makes it cost ineffective. So that's why we kind of reverted back and said, all right, then we're just going to maintain the upstairs for just straight up office space. So annual value to members, obviously there's a lot of resource opportunity here for networking. So the idea is that there's resource in one space people can access, they can come to, we can bring in SBA to have office hours, we can bring in all sorts of groups. Part of the Coven differentiator is that they have back-end support with educational opportunities, they can help you with business development, they bring in speakers, they have virtual tools, they have back-end scheduling tools. There's just a lot of back-end things that they do to support. And then just a little bit about the Eau Claire space. You can kind of get a visual for what this looks like and what our vision is. It's really about making a maker space, so to speak. And you can see here that the Eau Claire group right now, they're a host of 40 businesses. They have about 85 members. And then what I think is even more important than that is their affiliations. They co-coordinate a startup, Eau Claire Week, as they call it, for entrepreneurs. They host events like 1 Million Cups, and they are the headquarters for Venture Home, which is part of the Eau Claire pilot program for the campuses there. So please ignore the financial request. We're not necessarily asking for money. What we're doing here is really just sharing with you the financial basis for how this comes together. And I apologize for the really tiny print here, but this is not an inexpensive endeavor. Obviously, there's the initial purchase of the building, there's the renovation and reconstruction, and then there is the cost of bringing the franchise in. So I wholeheartedly believe that this is an amazing opportunity for the community, and that's why I personally am taking that step forward to make the financial investments and just looking for, again, opportunities for you all to help me understand what resources exist and how we can really push this forward in the community. I would entertain questions.
Thank you, Marcia. I appreciate you coming and talking about this. I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day in regards to the lack of young entrepreneurs we have. We are getting old, unfortunately. I hate to say that, but I look at like my daughter's generation and stuff, and we need to be kind of a growing pot for them, that we're building those entrepreneurs here in Marshfield. You think of Prevention Genetics, you think of dental crafters. They all started out small, and now we have them here in the community. So I think it's really important to keep and grow and make sure we don't lose out of the young entrepreneurs that we have in the community. So thank you.
Yeah, and if I could make just one more quick comment about that, I'm glad you brought that up, Mary Jo. So, you know, our high school does have a biomedical program that kids can walk through. And at the end of that program, their capstone is that they have to pitch to a group of potential investors, right? And so myself, as well as others in the community, have done this for a while, and these kids have amazing ideas. But what happens is when the program ends, they go on to college and they leave, and it's just a project. And I think if we had resources for these kids and opportunities, some of these kids could come back and actually do some of these things that they've initiated here, which would be really amazing. The other thing is I've talked to the schools about doing some of the co-oping. And Mary Jo, you guys might even have one, but you know, these kids go out into the community in their senior years and they work and they get that experience. And I'd love to bring them into the Coven and have opportunity for them to see this, because I think, you know, we're trying to make this a pretty cool, trendy place. This might be an opportunity for that younger generation to come and work as well. You see them in the coffee shops. It's very difficult to work in coffee shops. As amazing as they are, they're loud, you can't Zoom. It's very difficult to work in those spaces if you don't have an isolated place to work.
Yeah, I challenge this committee to like look and see name 5 young entrepreneurs that are in Marshfield right now. Tom?
Thank you. Another name, Faggies.
Mm-hmm.
We remember John Faggy started, I believe, in his basement or something to that effect, and that grew and grew. I'm on the county board and part of the seed committee, and we're going to be looking forward to give out grants again. So I would encourage you, this is perfect for that to put in an application for a grant for that. So
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Good. Thank you, Marcia.
Thank you so much.
All right. Let's see. Item number 9, presentation walkthrough Wednesdays. Tom Lokes, Communication Director. And is Tom here? He's hiding behind the wall. And I appreciate him skipping last month's meeting. That's okay.
we'll lock the door.
Yeah. Hopefully somebody's running the show back there.
Someone. All right, let me get this, where we at here? Get this one off. Okay. We gotta put this so it don't slide. Okay, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Again, my name is Tom Lokes, and I wanted to bring up the Walkthrough Wednesdays. Some of you may have seen it. It's a video with myself doing the video behind the scenes, as well as Denise here from the chamber. And we do these every Wednesday. And this was a part of a process that we wanted to do to receive money from you guys, the EDB. We asked for a $5,000 last year to do more projects like this, and this is one of the projects that we do on a weekly basis. So I wanted to let you know and update you where we're at on that. We have 4 more that we're going to be working on next week, and I guess right now they are chamber businesses. I'm open to do others as well. So the Walkthrough Wednesdays is really the brand that we have with the chamber, but if we want to do others that are Main Street or outside of that, please give me a call. I'm willing to do something with that, and also work with Keely at Main Street or Matt over at Visit Wisconsin if needed on those. So I do have an example if you haven't seen it. I want to play it here, so I'm going to need to share my screen here. We do share these on all our platforms, the city's Facebook page, the Marshfield Broadcasting's page. When I say about Marshfield Broadcasting, because that is the arm of the video component of what we do here for the city. And then shared through Mackey as well as throughout in the community and community TV as well. So a lot of opportunities, newsletter, helps a lot to get that word out, and there's no cost for the local business to do that or Mackey's. So all right, let me share the screen here. This is, you can see Denise here. Let me back this up, and hopefully we don't get a duplication of audio. So can everyone see it here? Let me move that down. And I'm going to turn this mic off so we don't get any feedback.
Welcome to Walkthrough Wednesdays with the Chamber. Today we are at Gypsy Hollow, located at 2001 South Central Avenue. Let's take a look inside to see what they have. Originally started as Mystic Hollow in 2010 in the downtown, this business then formed into Gypsy Hollow with their son Bo. And in 2020, they moved to their new location down at the Pierce Plaza at 2001 South Central. They have everything from bath products to gems, to minerals, to crystals, to jewelry, to wood products. You name it, they have it. They even have classes for ceramics in the back room. Thank you for coming along today on our Walkthrough Wednesday.
All right, well, those are just about a minute long, and we're not looking to do any longer video, but it's just a really simple highlight of a business to bring awareness out into the community, something that hasn't been done here before, and we'll continue doing those. And I just wanted to provide you an update. Denise, you want to say anything? No? Okay. Any questions that you have regarding that?
Thank you, Tom. I actually watched that Gypsy Hollow one the other day, and I was like, oh, this is right down by me. I didn't know that was all right there. So they're very informative and nice. So any other comments? Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. I just would like to commend Tom and the communication team, David, and I believe you have an intern now as well. This was done years and years ago, something similar to this, but our communication department does a good job getting that out there to let people know what's available, because a lot of them still don't know what's out there and available. So thank you, Tom, and your department.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Ken, I have a question.
Oh, Ken?
Thanks. Yeah, I think it's a really good idea. It brings awareness to all these small businesses downtown, especially. You know, we drive by them 25, 30, 40 miles an hour, whatever it is. And, you know, we see the sign, but we really don't, you know, unless we make an effort to go inside, you know, and this will just kind of, you know, bring some awareness and get some people, you know, hey, we need to look at this. I looked at this video, it's like, wow, there is a lot of stuff in that little store or whatever it is, that Nook. So yeah, I think it's a really good idea, and hopefully you guys move forward and get this done. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And if any businesses are out there that are listening to this, either contact myself or contact Mackie, Denise, and we can see what we can do to line up a video. And it only takes really about 20 minutes inside, so not too long to have a nice video for yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Item number 10, discuss next steps on confirming the board's authority for the allocation of funds for basically our allocation of funds and proposed revision of building revitalization grant.
Thank you.
Do you have something to hand out with this at all, Steve?
Yeah, I do, and that's my first thing. There's several handouts that I have at my table over here that were sent to you in the afternoon. You may not have them in front of them. So if you need actual printed copies, I can walk around right now. Just a little background on how we got here, and thanks, John, for distributing those. And apologize for getting those out there at the last minute yesterday. Two things. First of all, I mean, this started from the idea that we were looking at the facade grant program, which is being renamed, proposed to be renamed to the Building Revitalization Grant Program to help businesses to do both interior and exterior work on their properties. And the question came up again as part of the conversation with the EDB's funding authority in general, whether or not the allocation can be made to the individual businesses without needing to be blessed by the council as a whole. So just, the city attorney was with us last month, so I want to kind of separate these two and then kind of merge them together. First of all, the question that was talked about following the pickleball allocation that was ultimately rejected by the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee, what authority does the Economic Development Board have to spend dollars from the 205 Economic Development Fund on their own without the blessing of the elected officials as a whole? And that's one of the things we're going to talk about. The other thing that came up from the city attorney was, once again, whether or not we have direct authority, implicit authority from the council for this body to make the allocations to the recipients of grant funds to fix up their buildings, or does that have to come to the council? So my understanding from the last meeting is we were going to look at bringing a resolution to the council that would say, look, the monies have been approved in the budget for the facade grant program, per se, I'll keep calling it that for now, and just looking to get confirmation from the council that the EDB and people working for the EDB, working with Main Street and others, are empowered to make those allocations without the final allocations to the downtown property owners having to come before the council for approval. In other words, we're deeding over our authority to allow you to do that based on the fact that the monies have been budgeted and you're the approving body. The other question that's come up, though, and like I said, going back to the pickleball discussion, is could the EDB have, or should they have, the ability to make those allocations from the Economic Development Fund apart from the council based upon your mission as an Economic Development Board, the way it was set up initially back in 2012? Is council approval actually needed for further expenditures from that fund? And the pickleball is just one example. So two things. First of all, my thought was to prepare a resolution to bring to the council that would say, look, when monies are approved in the budget for a purpose like facade grants, we're asking for your delegated authority that the allocation of those funds to individual businesses does not need council approval. Just kind of confirming what the city attorney said. Let's get that off the table and make sure that's understood. The next step further would be looking for council approval of the fact that the EDB has actual authority to spend money from the 205 fund in general, whether or not those monies have been part of an approved budget. So I talked with Chairperson Wheeler Schuler yesterday, and at her direction, I did propose, or I did put forth to you, I should say, for your review, a resolution that could be brought to the council suggesting, in fact, that based upon the mission of this body and what they're entrusted to be working on, that they should be deeded the authority to make expenditures from that 205 fund directly in any case that they feel is appropriate. That is one step farther than the resolution I was planning to present, which was basically just to confirm the ability to use monies from a budgeted expense that was approved by the council and allocate those at their discretion. So again, in the conversation, these two things will probably converge into one. The resolution is based upon full allocation authority of this body for anything from the 205 fund.
Thank you, Steve. And yes, we did discuss yesterday. I think it's, I asked you to send along the development strategy, the 22 Economic Development Strategic Plan. And in there it does, and under S2.1.3, it says objectives, goals, strategy, support efforts to bring new recreation, cultural amenities such as art installation, bike trails, winter sports facilities. And the partners with that are EDB. You have S2.1.4 that also mentions us, S2.1.5. and S3.1.1. I think going back to the history of the reason for EDB and the setup of that 205 fund was that we were able to do these things without having to constantly ask council for stuff. We are an appointed body of the council, so they have an opportunity if they're not happy with one of us to not appoint us or not continue on and reappoint someone else. So they do have control on under us that way. But they need to give us the authority to do what we see fit as a body to move this needle in the city of Marshfield with economic development. And it doesn't just have to do with facade grant. It has to do with anything that we see fit. And I think that pickleball thing was a little frustrating for all. If they wanted to do the presentation for pickleball in front of council and then they voted up or down, I think that was appropriate. But I think it's a waste of our time that these people come here and ask for money. And that's why I asked you to pull Marcia's request ask off. She did have a request ask.
Correct.
And I said, well, there's no point of anyone asking us for money because we don't know if we can ask or give money. So until this resolution, and the reason I did the resolution vague is I think then we know where the chips are. So we throw it at council and say, hey, this is vague, but do you trust us? If they don't trust us, they'll come back and say, hey, these are the things that we'll let you have. So I would really like to see us just put this in front of council and see where the chips fall. Any other discussion on that? Tom?
I'll be very short. I agree.
Can I ask a point of clarification? The pickleball folks, did they come here with an ask or did they get offered? I don't believe they came with an ask for money. They asked for support and somebody threw out a dollar amount and that was the motion.
They did come here with an ask. And I don't know if you were at that meeting, but they did come here with an ask. You might have been, I can't remember. But yeah, they did come here with an ask and we approved it for $50,000 and then it went to council and then they denied it. So that would have been the frustration with it. And actually the gentleman that's part of that pickleball group I bumped into and he said, hey, I'd like to come to the meeting and re-present in case there was any questions on anything. And I said, there's no point right now. Like, I'd love to have you, but, you know, until we know what we can do and what we can give, you know. Go ahead, Russ.
So is there a requested action of this body then to make a motion to accept the resolution and present it to the council for evaluation?
Well, I'm not making that request. I prepared the resolution at the direction of the chair. What I'm looking for is some clarification as to how you want to take this forward. My recommendation would be that, you know, at the very least, you may want to move this resolution forward, but at the very least, we get directed to bring forth a resolution to the council to make it clear that they're giving us authority to make the individual facade grant allocations without their blessing, so that it's been budgeted $70,000 or whatever the dollar amount is from year to year for the facade grant program, that it doesn't need to come to them to give $20,000 to business X on Main Street or whatever. That's been given to this body once the budget is approved to allocate those funds appropriately. The resolution before you goes beyond that. That suggests that the use of the Economic Development Fund in general is at the discretion of this body, regardless of whether it's part of an approved budget item or not?
And that suggestion came from our attorney, our city attorney, Hep Wolf-Graham.
The first part. The first part.
And the second part, to make sure there was clarity. I talked to him on it. So that we know what our 205 fund can do.
Okay, yeah, no, definitely.
Go ahead, Tom.
It's a request you can definitely make.
Go ahead.
Thank you. If it would mean more coming from Russ or Andrew to make a motion to approve, but if you choose not to, I certainly would make the motion.
And your motion is?
I'll motion to send this to the council for approval.
A second.
Second from Russ. All those in favor?
I think Andrew's been raising his hand for a while here.
Oh, we always forget about Andrew. You need that little emoji thing.
He did have it up once.
I had it up and I put it down because I was going to say we're having a discussion without a motion on the table, but we just addressed that. I did not move for this and I'm not going to support it. I think this is going to backfire big time for a lot of reasons. First of all, let's call a spade a spade. The reason this came up is because we didn't get our way with the pickleball request. If anyone watched that Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee meeting, it was a 3-2 vote. And there were various reasons to why it didn't go through. One of them, the reason I didn't vote for it, I didn't think that amount was appropriate. I thought it was too little. It should have been more. And in that discussion, it was an ill-prepared presentation. We were not ready to ask for that. If it got into council, the same thing would have happened. So it's not a matter of us not having the authority. It's a matter that we did not put in the efforts to come up with that. If we could add a specific amount, rhyme or reason behind it, wonderful. That probably would have passed that committee. Every other committee in the city of Marshfield does not have this authority. They do not have the delegated authority, including Finance, Budget, and Personnel, who pays the salaries of City Hall, and they don't have any issue with it. So the issue with this is going to be that right now, if we're paying attention to anything that's going on Tuesday meetings in City Council, we're at about a $600,000 deficit right now going to the year 2025. Now, when we changed how the allocated funds came into 205, where it used to come straight from Marshfield Utilities, now it's going through City Council, Mr. Bargander brought up a very wise point of going, well, aren't we going to potentially lose money on this? And he's right. Right now, if we're the nail that stick ups, we're going to get the hammer. If all of a sudden we pop up, go to City Council and go, hey, you know what? We want all the authority to spend the money as we wish with no oversight whatsoever from you. It's going to look like something nefarious is up. We're going rogue. We're not, but it's going to look that way. That's going to be a great way to bring an unwanted attention to EDB, where now people are going to start going, okay, well, why do they want that authority? And then potentially it's going to lead to someone potentially bringing up the point of, well, if we're short 600,000 right now for the year, mind you, the reason we bridged 300,000 last year was by delaying hiring of fire and police personnel. They're going to say, you know what, we can get a lot of this from EDB. I think last meeting, Lyle suggested just not having the facade program at all for a year. We do that, they're going to go, hey, you know what, that's a great idea. But we don't need this facade program. We're just going to skip right over, and that's another way to balance the budget. It's not going to pass City Council, and I think it's going to hurt us in the long run. I understand the frustration, but to this point, we've been able to do it fine with enough preparation for it. It didn't pass Finance, Budget, and Personnel because one person was concerned we were spending too much money. Me, personally, I thought we were spending enough money on the pickleball court, which the irony of it is, turns out that was the case. We should have been allocating about $125,000 in order to get the lights included on there too. So I understand the impetus behind this. I understand why we want to ask for it. I think the end result is going to backfire, and it's not going to be what we want.
I have a question.
Yep. I just want to address something really quick, Andrew. I think the presentation here at EDB was perfect and fantastic. The presentation then, when we approved it as the body to go to council, they didn't have any of the facts. They didn't know any of this stuff. And to me, I mean, I don't know if Russ was there to be able to address some of those things, but he's only one voice and one vote on that council. So you need to trust this body with what they're doing. And the 205 fund is not there. That was never the intent of it, to balance the city's budget.
It didn't make it to council. It got killed in Finance, Budget, and Personnel.
Yeah, correct. Thank you.
Right, so Russ wasn't there.
Okay.
The only person sitting here right now that was there is Tom Bucky and me.
Russ was there.
Yeah, I was in
Russ
the
was
audience.
there.
I was in the audience.
Were you in the audience, Russ?
I was in the audience during the
Okay, I
finance.
apologize for not recognizing you there.
It's okay. Russ, you had something to say?
Yeah, just for clarification, what is the source of the funds for the 205? Aren't they primarily from the utility?
It began from an old RLF that the city used to run, a revolving loan fund for businesses, where we would loan out money to local businesses and they'd pay it back and we'd recycle it. We ultimately decided to close that fund at a point when the regional fund from the Central Wisconsin Economic Development was better terms, better interest rates, better terms in general than us. So we thought, why should we be competing with them? And then we were allowed, based upon the grant rules that we'd gotten the money from to begin with, to then have that in a segregated economic development fund to keep recycling for other purposes. Now, on an annual basis, the money that comes into that fund is coming from the utility dividend, and it has been the case for many years.
And that's why we have a person on the board from utilities.
Correct.
Go ahead, Paul.
One thing that has changed, though, is last year when the city and the utilities had their series of meetings, is that the utilities and the city agreed that it isn't automatic. Up until this year, it was pretty much automatic that the funds that were, the amount of the dividend went directly into 205. That's no longer the case. It goes to the city and the city approves based upon our budget or at their wish, what is going to go into the 205 fund. So yes, the funds end up in the 205 fund are from the utility, but that doesn't mean that if the utility gives 300,000, 205 is going to get 300,000 for economic development. Used to be that way, not so much starting this year.
That's a really good clarification. The money now goes to the city in general fund, and then based on the budget you submitted to the council, which this year is $237,000, they then approved your budget, and then those monies get transferred to the 205 fund. The intent, I think, from utilities has always been that those monies be used primarily, if not entirely, for economic development, but that tie is no longer what it was. You were correct.
So, thank you. I think we have to forget the pickleball. That's what maybe, excuse me, brought the attention to it, but that wasn't the reason. We have people coming here. We have staff coming here to present their budgets and what they would do, like with the facade, for example. And we hear that. Council doesn't hear that part. Unless you're going to have that, you're going to have them come to the council. Then there's no need for this board anymore. And, and I think this board is valuable to that because we hear all that from the people. Some people don't like going to the council. But I mean, that's where it's at. And the pickleball thing, however that turned out, I got to disagree with Andrew on that. I mean, I felt bad because I was put in a bad place on that. To present that, and some people thought I was there as a fundraiser. That's not. I was representing this board. So I think it's valuable, and I think I think it should be that way. That the council allots them the money for it, and then it's up to us to. And I think this board over the years, I've been on this board probably since inception. And it's been that way. And I don't think there's ever been an issue like this before. So, I mean, if you don't trust us, get rid of us, like Mary Jo said, and put somebody else on. Thank you.
And I see everybody's hands. Russ was next, and then Andrew, and then I saw Ken too. So I see everybody.
Thank you. Just an additional point of clarification, Paul, and maybe Steve could help with this. But the funds that come from the utility, they are to be used for economic development. And I think, isn't that a PSC requirement?
It's not a PSC requirement, no. And my understanding was that the utility last year, after the series of meetings, we voted to take off in our bylaws the fact that it had to be used for economic development. And I believe the city did the same. And so they don't no longer have to be. But the understanding at the time of the meetings was that dividend would still be used to fund the budget for ADB, but the city council wasn't necessarily committed to putting all the funds from the utility dividend into that 205 fund.
Yeah, I think that's true. The intent is still that it be used, again, primarily, if not entirely, for economic development. But the door is now open to filling potholes or anything else, at least officially.
Andrew?
Thank you. Just briefly, too, I think Tom addressed my first point. Was going to be like, Tom's been out here basically since inception, and this is the first time something hasn't gone through. I mean, it's a pretty high rate of success. And then secondly, about the economic relation to the spending of the funds. When you're looking at a budget deficit of $600,000, you're going to be cutting something. And this isn't like cutting the zoo or something else of the sort. We're talking about stuff like fire, police, potholes. That all ties into economic development. No one's going to come if there aren't any police here, or any fire, or too many potholes. I mean, there is going to be some way to tie it in if you really wanted to, but to Paul's point, you know, if those got removed, then it's all fair game.
The reason it changed, though, is because of what happened with the 205 fund. That had never happened before.
Another
But it did
comment.
change, to the point.
I'm going to let Ken go because we missed him. That's okay.
Sorry.
Thanks. The council allocated the funds to our budget for us to further allocate, okay, to grant, okay. So anything in our budget, yeah, we should have complete authority over that money. That's a give me. I think we all agree on that, okay. But I think one of the things that, and especially that Paul brought up here, is really pertinent here, because our funding is not really guaranteed anymore, okay, from the utility. I think that was mentioned a few years ago already, that there's no guarantees that we would get money from the dividend, which would be used for economic development. And I think the concern with some of the council members is that if we have full authority to use all of the available funds in the 205 fund, is that we would have a line from here to the street with people asking for $25, $50, $75, $100,000, okay? And if we have that authority and we start doing that, okay? So, and then we deplete our 205 fund, and we are not guaranteed we're going to get any money next year, right? I mean, is that true, Paul? Is that true? There's no guarantees, right?
That's my understanding. It's up to the city.
Okay, thank you. So then, if we come up with a housing rehabilitation program, once we get a staff member back on board, okay, down the road, we'll get a staff member eventually, right? And we have ideas for housing, right? And housing revitalization programs, okay? Those programs will take up hundreds of thousands of dollars, okay? But if we're depleted because we gave out 10,000 here, 5,000 there, 10, 15, $20,000, we won't have anything to do a big project here in town. That's what my concern is. So I think, yeah, we should have complete authority over our budget. There's no question. There should not, because if we don't have that authority, we shouldn't be here, obviously. Okay, they don't trust us, we shouldn't be, right? But you know, if we exceed our budget, you know, and we start giving out this money, we won't have it when we need it. Thank you.
But we're all a body that has to vote on it, and I don't run my checkbook into a negative, and I don't think anybody else does here. So that goes into the trust factor. I mean, there's been presentations that we've turned down from people because we didn't feel it was a good economic driver for the community. Russ, you had a comment?
Two things. One, when I hear things like, you know, the 205 fund, which currently has a balance of $946,000, could be used to fill potholes, then it rings to me as a slush fund for the city. And if we run low on money, just grab it from the 205 fund. And the second thing I'll say, when we were at the council, I made a statement that I like the idea of the EDB having a budget, and it kind of ties to Ken's point about discipline and distribution of the funds. And if maybe we need to put some parameters in place. I see the strategic plan or the spreadsheet from 2022, but maybe just a little bit tighter parameters to avoid certain overspending on the part of the EDB might be in order.
Thank you, Russ. All right, we had a motion from Tom. Did you want to change it?
Andrew has a question yet.
Andrew does? Okay, sorry, no yellow hand.
A brief comment here. Yeah, it was going up. It takes a quick second for it to.
No, I'm picking on you.
Oh, no, that's fine. Just one quick follow-up to Russ's comment there. When, calling it a slush when I get where that's coming from, but I don't think it'd be the city necessarily reaching into the 205 fund to pull out of there. I think it'd be the fact that they would just give us a budget of 0 and take that to try to balance checkbooks or something like that. That's where I think is how it would play out, potentially.
I've just been reminded by our accounting manager, Jordan, that the unrestricted fund balance is actually less than the fund balance that shows at the 946. And I think we've talked about that before. The main point here is that fund available for what purposes and who draws from it at this moment.
That is correct. Go ahead.
I'm not clear. So you stated earlier that it could be used for potholes and now it can't?
No.
There's levels of classifications of fund balance. So we have restricted fund balances, which means it's set aside for a purpose. And I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of this. So a lot of this, we're talking about budget semantics, right? So restricted fund balances, we have a potential obligation to have to pay this restricted fund balance back for, say, the Daniels edition, which is out there, which is why we have to keep that in a separate bucket. Then you have an unrestricted fund balance of 559, which is the potential uses of this body. So I just wanted to break that out and make sure that you are clear on that. Restricted, potential obligation, unrestricted, no potential obligation.
We have a liability out there.
So and I think we've talked about this a little bit before, that we've sold land in Daniel's edition, and under the development agreements, if they do not proceed as possible as expected, they can come back to us and say, look, we want you to buy it back from us, or we can proactively buy it back from them to try and get it out there. We want to see development. So that obligation are basically properties that we've sold, but they haven't built upon yet. Back to your question, though, Russ, about the actual use of it. I mean, the council would have to take money from that fund and transfer it to other accounts that they could spend out of it. The council could wake up in October of 2024 and say, you know what, we have a budget to balance, and the 205 fund has a balance of $600,000 or whatever it has at that time. We'd like to transfer, $150,000 from that to the general fund to be able to use for public works services or whatever. The intent of that fund is it'd be spent on economic development, but you could still make a transfer from that fund with approval of the body to somewhere else for legitimate government purposes. I think the purpose of that fund is always going to be generally for economic development, though, no matter how it turns out in general. But Andrew's right. I mean, we're certainly facing issues. We're losing some money based upon the clinic settlement. We're losing money based upon the utilities pilot payment going down, not because of them, but because of some other factors that go into the formula. And there'll be a need to deal with that.
Any other discussion on this? Tom, did you want to repeat your motion, what it was? Okay.
I would move to approve the resolution and move it on to the council for their approval.
Do we have a second?
Yep.
Russ, a second. All those in favor, we'll do a voice vote. Paul?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes. Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Russ?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Andrew?
No.
Okay. And I'm a yes as well. Okay.
What I would ask is that when this comes to the council, which I guess if it works for somebody, it would be this coming Tuesday, that there be a member of this body, whether it be the chairperson or someone else, to address the request at the podium rather than staff. I think that would be appropriate in this case.
Okay. I'll plan on attending.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I thought we were going to get out of here at 8:30. So much for that idea, right? Item number 11, review and discuss city's 22 economic development strategic plan. It's you again, Steve. You should have just stayed up there.
As noted at a previous meeting, you have the plan in front of you from 2022 that was done. And there was, I think, while we still had Josh Miller on board as our director of that department. But it shows the things that were hoped to be accomplished, the people involved. It references to EDB, CDA, Main Street, Mackey, and others as to who the primary and secondary people were involved in terms of the expectations of working toward those goals. I have not spent time yet looking at what goals have been accomplished fully or partially and which ones are still unaddressed. But I think the body felt last month it might be good to start digging into this soon, and maybe starting today and continuing, next month. But are those goals still important? Are they still important? Do they still reflect the needs of our community from an economic development and community standpoint? And maybe recrafting and recommitting ourselves to said plan.
I think last month it was a little different with Carrie here. I was really looking forward to her being on board to help develop this plan. A lot of things have been put on hold because we didn't have that person, and I wanted to work hand in hand with that person and our body to be able to do that. So I think we're back on hold again. Which EDB for the city, that's what grows our tax base, shouldn't be put on hold.
I think what could be done in the interim would be just at least staff working maybe with staff from these other entities to see what has been addressed and to what degree so far, and have a report like that for the May meeting. And that'll give a sense of where the gaps are still left.
Do you want to have Natalie send this out to that body, and maybe they highlight, maybe make it editable so they can highlight some things that need to be addressed?
Yeah, and I'll probably schedule a meeting involving some of the people in this room right now that I'm looking at who were part of that in terms of their roles, in terms of trying to work toward those goals and objectives. And yes, we will do that. Okay. Absolutely.
I'd like to be part of that meeting. So, all right. Item number 12, review and discuss EDB bylaws. Oh boy.
And again, what you have in front of you now, and again, wait a minute, do I need to hand these out? Would those include? Okay.
Yes.
This is another item I sent electronically yesterday, and I apologize for that. So I don't know how far we'll go today. There have been discussions, I know, Mary Jo, that you've had in the past with a couple members of the body trying to work towards some revisions on this. You may want to comment on that.
Yes.
But it would be helpful to update the 2012 bylaws. Some of them are just literally, some portions of them are outdated on their face. Others maybe need to be looked at for specific reasons.
So Russ and myself separately met at my house, and then Paul and myself separately met at my house to discuss the bylaws. After I joined and then I became chair, I asked right away where the bylaws were, and it was a hard struggle to find them. Once we found them, they were very outdated, and it's been kind of our mission and goal to get these edited and updated. I did give them to Carrie last month to just have her look through them, and obviously Carrie's not here. I was kind of holding off on doing some of this until we hired someone, but I think it's important that we address some of the major issues in here. So I do have some writing, and you'll have to dust off my memory a little bit, Russ and Paul, with some of the notes. I didn't know if one of you guys wanted to come over here and sit, but these were the notes that we had kind of compiled. One of the things is, I think it's item number 4, under board members, the utilities person isn't mentioned. So we've never, Paul, really, you're not supposed to be here, just kidding. So I think our mission statement, we should, what's our core? The Economic Development Board, EDB, was established by ordinance number 122. Well, it's not an ordinance, it's a code now. So that language needs to be changed. What's hard to do is this, I feel, should be discussed amongst all of us to get it figured out and not take up a whole meeting, because I feel this could take up a whole hour for us to go through this. But then we're dealing with quorums and open meetings and things like that. So I guess I would like to know how we'd like to proceed, if we'd like to just fix some of these things in here kind of quick, like the ordinance to code, or getting Paul added, or if we want to get together separately. Yes.
So 2 thoughts. One, I agree with you that it's unfortunate we don't have assistant city administrator, community development director to help walk us through this. It's a pretty important document. And 2, I think what the approach that the utility takes on their documentation is maybe helpful for us. In other words, we could bite it off in small chunks. Instead of dedicating one meeting or a subcommittee, we take a portion of the bylaws each meeting until we're completely through.
I think it's a great idea. You guys good with that? Awesome. I didn't want to be here till noon anyway. Just kidding.
Andrew.
Oh, hey, go ahead, Andrew. Yellow emoji.
Yeah, just to follow up on Russ's idea, I think it's a good idea. What might be even better is, so how many sections are there here? We're looking at 9 total. I mean, we could break those off into smaller sections. So like if we meet once a month, we could go through like 12 months. And then basically on a rolling basis, be reviewing this every single time so it doesn't get to the point that it's 10 years outdated.
Okay.
Just a thought.
Now, my other question too, has everybody had a chance to read through these really well? So do we want to take the time to like, hey, here's the bylaws? And I'm fine if Steve and Natalie send out our little notes that we had written on this to kind of refresh like Paul and Russ and I's memory on things. And then next meeting, we can take that little chunk and start working on it. Russ,
I would say, oh, go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say, I think that's a good approach. It's been a while since you and I met, so I remember kind of what we said. It'll be good to see them before we actually talk through them.
Okay.
But I like the idea of sending out the note. Everybody can see them.
So then I'll give you these back, Steve, and you can scan my little.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's front and back on those. And I apologize about my spelling and my handwriting. So
That's all right.
Okay. So we're good. Do we need to make a motion for that?
I think consensus is probably fine.
Okay. Sounds good. So we're good. Everybody will read stuff. We'll send those out. And then next meeting, we'll eat a small part of our elephant. Okay. All right. Item number 13, review and discuss proposed policy for allowing public comments at board meetings.
You may recall that Mr. Bargander had raised the idea maybe we ought to look at some sort of a policy for how public comments would be held. And all bodies are different, not just in the city, but broadly speaking, what they allow and if they have any restrictions and what type of restrictions. I actually drafted this, and there's no great status for this. I did this at my desk yesterday to present something to you just for discussion today. And I really drew from, other communities, other boards that you see out there on the internet and what types of policies they've adopted, what sort of provisions. It seems like everybody wants to allow public comment. I go back to Rachel's earlier comments that that's a good thing to hear from the citizens. So I'm just going to read this. It's very short. You've got it in front of you now. And again, it's just for discussion today. You can decide what you want to do with it. But I just put that the EDB has determined that it's desirable to allow public comments near the start of each regular board meeting, provided that the following limitations are established and enforced. Here are the 6 bullet points that I put for your review and discussion. First one is comments will be limited to 5 minutes, and the chairperson will cut off the speaker after that time. Second one is the comments must be related to the area of economic development and or the mission of the EDB. Next is the comments must be made in an appropriate, respectful manner. Profanity will not be permitted. Then comments must not be personal attacks, regardless of whether the target is in or not in the room. Fifth is the purpose is one-way communication, so there won't be interaction. If I come on during public comment and I speak to the body, I'm not looking for them to respond to me. I can't get into a dialogue with them because it's not an agenda item as noticed. And then finally, comments will be taken under advisement. There won't be any action taken at that meeting. It may be scheduled for the next meeting for discussion and a motion, but at the meeting where it's first presented, there won't be any action. And that's simply because, again, the public seeing this agenda would have had no idea that was going to be debated. So those are just ideas for you to consider if you're interested in developing and having a policy governing public comments that can be added to, reduced, or whatever.
Thank you, Steve. So my mind has changed a couple times on this. I did speak with Ken and Tom originally after, and I was like, oh yeah, that would be a good idea. And then I thought about it and I was like, why are we limiting time? We're talking to Hap, who's the attorney for the city. He's like, you have the right at any point in time as chair, and we're run by Robert's Rules of Order and parliamentary procedure to cut somebody off and handle things. I also think that if we see a whole line of people out here, that's when as the chairperson goes, hey, due to the number of people here, we're going to limit time to 1 minute, 2 minutes, whatever it's going to be. So I also think this has to do with our bylaws and that us taking off this as a policy that we're doing. So maybe this is something that in our 9 sections of our bylaws needs to be addressed. So I would like to see nothing done with this. I also agree to Rachel's comments earlier. We're here to represent the citizens and the taxpayers in Marshfield, and I appreciate their comments and what they are here to, they need to be able to freely speak, and sometimes that takes more time. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I brought this up, definitely, but I didn't bring it up to make it a big, complicated conversation, okay? Public comments are handled, like Steve said earlier, public comments are handled different by a commission and committee, okay? And the idea here was to keep the comments pertinent to economic development, okay? So we didn't run off into subjects and complaints that are not related to the Economic Development Board, you know? Yeah, I totally agree. I've won public comments. I did not want to try to curtail them to the point where we wouldn't even allow them. Although there are some boards and commissions and councils in the state, in this area, that do not allow any public comments at their meetings, okay? That was never my goal, okay? But I wanted to make them more, the comments specific to what our goal is and our mission is here. So as far as 5 minutes goes, yeah, that could be curtailed, that could be extended by the board with consensus, by the chair with a consensus of the board. I think if we do adopt a policy, that it should be part of our agenda every meeting, and that the chair should read the policy prior to public comments, so there's no conflicts. No one says, well, no, we didn't know what the policy was. I mean, that's pretty straightforward, pretty easy. So no, it doesn't have to be a big we don't have to make a big deal of this, you know. But I think a policy is appropriate here. Okay, thank you.
I just want to say that I actually asked Russ and Natalie today if I had to read the policy for conflicts of interest, because I'm trying to save us all time. It's there. And they said no. So I think if it's on the agenda and it's printed, if this is something we do, that it doesn't need to be read. And Andrew, I see your hand up, and I did ask her to make me one of those little emoji sticker things so I can hold it up that I see you.
Oh, good. Yeah. So no, I'll just kind of echo what Ken said in partial for different reasoning. First of all, I'd be shocked if anyone here wanted to get rid of public comments altogether. They absolutely should be. We welcome that input. It's just one more avenue for us to understand what the citizens of Marshfield want. So it by no means should it be limiting. That being said, we do want to have a policy to keep it on track, because we're going to run we run the risk of having something going totally off topic, and they're talking about zoning, and it's like, well, excuse me, Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so, you should be talking to the zoning board, not to us, or something of the sort. Now, Mary Jo, to your point of, well, you know, the chair has the ability to cut off or not, in the absence of a policy, you might run into potentially First Amendment issues if we don't have a policy. We have a neutral policy on there that says 5 minutes tops. Not it's 5 minutes, but if someone's talking about some topic that we don't like or is uncomfortable and you cut them off, then we could potentially run into some issue like that, or they could claim it. But if we have a neutral policy, there's no way to claim that. So if the concern is the amount of allotted time, yeah, that can be discussed. Yeah, absolutely. I think we should have some degree of policy on there. Now, that being said, I think having a time limit or recommendation is good, because if someone does come up here to have, let's say it's a 15-minute talk or presentation, I think at that point, if they're going to be talking that much, it should be an agenda item. We should be prepared for it. We should be able to listen to it. So I think a policy is advisable. Now, granted, it's malleable too. We can change it to how we see fit, but I think it's a good idea to have.
Okay, thank you.
And I think what I did was maybe a little bit over the top for many of you. I mean, I'm not a formal person by nature. We're a small community in central Wisconsin. We're not Washington, D.C. But I do think at some level you want to be thinking about things like how long you would let someone speak, what the topic is, and some level of decorum in terms of how they conduct themselves. So where you want to land is entirely up to you.
Russ?
Yeah, I don't think it's overly complex, Steve. I think that these are good bullet points. The only thing I would clarify in bullet point number 5, I think, From my experience, one-way communication, the body should be allowed to ask clarifying questions.
I agree.
Not to engage and discuss, but just to get clarifying questions.
That's a great point, Russ. I think what I was trying to get at and what maybe others are thinking of in their policies is to not debate it to the point where, again, the public wouldn't have known that was going to be but you're right. For you to clarify what Rachel said, if you had questions and you wanted to clarify and understand her, that would have been very appropriate.
Do we want to just run through these these points? There's 6 of them, and we either agree or disagree, and then give this back to Steve to take to HAP to do a policy?
It's up to you.
Go ahead.
Is that okay? Okay. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes. The chairperson will cut off the speaker after that time. All those in favor of that wording or any changes?
We just want to go through all the points and we can, will that be all right? All together? We'll agree after all the points have been read.
Okay, yeah. Comments must be related to area of economic development and or mission of the EDB. Comments must be made in an appropriate, respectful manner. Profanity will not be permitted. Comments must not be personal attacks regardless of whether the target is present in the room. The purpose is one-way communication, no interaction between speakers and board members. Comments will be taken under advisement. No action will be taken at meeting in question. So those were the 6 bullet points. We'll go back to the first bullet point. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes. The chairperson will be cut off. We'll cut off the speaker after that time.
So I'll just make a motion then, if required, that we adopt these bullet points and amend the 5th bullet point to allow for questions of the governing body, just for clarification.
You second, Andrew?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. So you'll make that amendment and then send that out?
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Let's see, item number 14, project updates, if any.
Yeah, in the interest of time, I'll keep it short. I know our economic development partners, I'm sure, have a couple things they want to share as well. The West 2nd Street redevelopment plan project continues. The implementation had Vanderwall was here a week or so ago. They met with downtown property owners, people affected on that area, west of Chestnut and 2nd area. And so they got a chance to get a sense of what those property owners might be interested in doing and their understanding of the project. Also continuing to talk with others. We've met with the CDA and Vanderwall too to clarify their role in the projects as we move forward. So good things are happening there. We're meeting monthly at least as we go forward. The Buffalo building and the police department are still looking at the possibility of moving the police station out there. I think we're going to know a lot in the 2nd quarter of 2024 as we look at the CIP and whether or not the council wants to focus on putting monies toward ultimately renovating that building for use by the police department, or whether they want to put money toward some of the capital needs that are needed for the existing station that really can't be delayed much longer as we look over the next 5 years. And then just to tell you that the TIF district work is still going on. I know you haven't heard, we're not to the finish line on the housing developments along along Veterans Parkway in the Fleet Farm area or 21st and Washington, but the conversations continue bubbling up for a possible development agreement to the council. And then also the conversations continue with Weinbrenner. Weinbrenner, as I mentioned, I think last month maybe, is still taking a step back, doing value engineering on their part to try and determine maybe some cost saving opportunities. But we're in constant contact with them, emailed with their representative again a couple days ago, and we expect them to come forward. TIF District 15 will be considered for creation today by the Joint Review Board. If they sign off, the council's already signed off, the funding mechanism for that project and other opportunities in the remaining vacant lots in the Mill Creek Business Park will be reestablished. We're closing TIF District 5, replacing it for the vacant parcels remaining with TIF District 15. And of course, that's where Weinbrenner is looking at locating. So we take any questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Item number 15, economic development activity updates. You're fighting over the position. You go. No, you go.
I only have one today, and that is, and I thought Steve would talk about it. That's okay. We had the official groundbreaking event on Monday for the 123 acres of the certified sites. Thank you to those of you that came and participated with us. It was really, really cold, but I think the turnout was still pretty good, and just exciting to see that day happen. Missy Hughes, I'm sorry, the CEO and Secretary of Economic Development for the state came, and she spoke. We had city folks speaking, and anyway, just finally now our work really begins on that, because now it's just vacant land and we've got to get projects expanding there. We've got to get new projects in here. So I'm looking forward to that next phase of that.
Awesome. Thank you. The sign out there, are you guys getting that changed to remove your
Yes,
name?
we're working on that.
Okay, I saw the pictures and I was like, oh, that was a waste, but yeah. I have to just give a big thank you to Steve. He shows up to all of our board meetings and gives updates from the city alongside Lois and the council representative. And he is wearing like 5 different hats and has been for about 2 years. So I hope we can all give Steve some major grace with, again, another staff person stepping down. Appreciate the work you do so much, Steve. Do so much for our city. We had the housing summit with economic development partners across the region in the past month, and there was a really good turnout out in Rapids. Ken was there, a few others were there, and it was an educational piece. We got to hear from other cities and the housing projects that they were doing, and I think a lot of us were excited to hit the ground running here. But again, without staff, that's going to be a little bit difficult. There is a housing survey out right now. If you have not seen it, have not filled it out, they're looking for people across all demographics to fill that out so that we really understand what we can target in this region for housing. I will continue to tout downtown upper levels. We have vacant places downtown, and anything we can do to support those places, that's such an easy check off of our city box. We are excited to be moving into that coven space with Marcia. She has really excellent plans and would be happy to sit down with anyone that has more detailed questions on that space. It will be a boon for our city. We're also excited to be working towards Hub City Days another year. All of our music is booked, and events last year brought in almost 22,000 people downtown just through Main Street events. We'll be running third Thursdays again, which is once a month, late hours with downtown businesses. And we'll be holding a town hall meeting on April 30th at 8 a.m. for property owners and business owners specifically to let them know what's going on downtown. You as partners are welcome to attend as well if you would like. We have a new program, the Adopted Parking Lot Program, that will be addressing the back median parking lots with garden beds. We're going to be pairing volunteers with sponsorship partners so that it has a funding mechanism and hands on the ground depending on what your skill and ability level is with that. If you're interested, let me know. I can send that packet of information to you directly. We're also really grateful to Parks and Rec as they will be getting the lots ready for us before May and chipping everything so that it's ready for volunteers to take on. And then we also have released the Small Business Marketing Grant for this year, so that is out and available to businesses through April 8th. All right, thank you. Any questions for her? Thank you. You walked away, so if there was, I was, no, it's okay. She's like, I'm done.
Remind you to, even though we know you, Karen and Kaylee, just introduce yourselves because someone may want to contact you who's viewing the meeting remotely.
Hi, Matt McLean, Visit Marshfield. Just a brief update here. We also have a tourism attraction and event grant program that is open now online. So if you go to visitmarshfield.com, scroll to the bottom of the page, any events, attractions, or people that would, activities that would bring a lot of visitors here are definitely what we're looking for. So one event that is actually happening this weekend that has been a recipient and we're proud to help secure and support is the Badger State Games Gymnastics. So there will be over 600 athletes and family here this weekend, filling the hotels, eating at the restaurants, and shopping. And this is a great event with our weather outside. Indoor sports is good. And again, so this is the shoulder seasons. April is usually a pretty lean month for our hotels, so having events and activities like this are definitely something we're trying to push and support. We're working on the Best of Marshfield program. You'll see that launch in May with our partners at Hub City Times, kind of showcasing everybody's favorite things that's kind of tourism related and showcasing the best things of Marshfield. Also trying to make new relationships. As I think we've seen in many businesses, there's a lot of new faces. The hotel Holiday Inn has a new general manager. Her name is Suncha. She's from Hawaii. So Denise and I met with her recently. So she's really new within the last, I think, month or so getting on board. And then Sherry is actually the new general manager at the Hampton Inn. She's been on board a couple months. So just trying to make sure to keep those relationships with the hotel partners. That's pretty much all I got. Any questions?
Any questions for Matt? Go ahead, Tom.
Just a comment. I watch the sports, the softball in Rhinelander, and we all know about their dome that they have. It's actually a big, huge tent, basically. But it would be nice if we could get something. I don't know what it costs, probably a lot more, but it would be great being centrally located. That they're getting all kinds of money in for that. And I just wish somebody that's, that would take an interest in that and do it for us.
Yeah,
and it's not, I'm not insinuating you should, although I know, sure, Matt, you got lots of money. But that just really gets me thinking about that because they had umpteen teams there.
Agreed. There's some great opportunities. I've been talking with the folks with the Columbus Catholic renovations. They're interested in hosting a bunch of tournaments, so that'll be some nice indoor space, as well as the winter sports complex. So I'm excited about those opportunities.
Thanks. All right, item number 16, suggested items for upcoming agendas. Is there any suggested items from the body? No? I have one. I would love to hear from, speaking to the sports thing, I would love to hear from the group that's trying to get that sports complex going. I would just love to hear about their presentation and what they're planning on doing. Is everybody okay with that? Okay.
And then there are a couple of items you're already following. But the bylaws.
I just have one.
Go ahead, Andrew. I'm glad you did that.
Potential hesitation with that. And I'm just thinking out loud here. Just because he made the comment of not wanting to use any taxpayer dollars, does that potentially create an illusion of government involvement or government dollars under that they may not want? I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. Just like I said, he made a very strong point of saying no government money was being used on that. So I don't know if that's something that he really is trying to keep at arm's length. Just a thought. I don't know. I mean, I'm not opposed to it, far from it, but just maybe consideration to consider.
Can I personally reach out to him, Steve, since I know them?
Yeah.
And just ask if they're comfortable. Yeah. If they're not, then we pull it off. Are you guys good with that?
And I'm not just, you're right, I agree. And I'm not disagreeing with Andrew. They have alluded to the desire for more property as part of that project that the city owns, if I'm thinking about what you're saying. So there may be a tie there that, comes to something that would be a recommendation to this body at some point.
Okay. So you guys,
does that make sense, Andrew?
Go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, and I would also remind us that, remind the group that we did support the project with a letter from the chairperson.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so you guys are okay if I just reach out and just ask if they'd like to? Okay, all right, thank you. And then announcement, item number 17, announcement time for next meeting, Thursday, May 2nd at 7:30 a.m. And item number 18, we adjourn. Second, third, fourth, fifth. Adjourned.